Jonathan Ang, seconds out here with Eddie Hearn. What a night.
Yeah, great night. I love these next gen. I love York Hall. You know, never a dull moment. Lots of drama. A couple of great fights. A couple of great performances. And yeah, it's what this series is all about. Giving young fighters a chance to come out, headline this kind of atmosphere, this bear pit. Great exposure around the world. And good to see a lot of them progress tonight.
I had a next gen card in Nottingham a few weeks back, but this was even better.
Yeah, I think the venue lends itself better here. I mean, we was in Nottingham Arena for that. You know, we had 3,000, but it's a 7,000 arena. Here it was absolutely packed to the rafters. Atmosphere is great. So I don't think we've done a bad next gen in York Hall, and you know, tonight was a big success.
Let's run through the card pretty quickly. Shannon Courtenay, first of all, first knockout of her career. I mean, that was explosive from round one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the opponent was probably a little bit poor, but it's hard in women's boxing really to find out the truth about the records you see. We had a fighter turned down by the Board of Control that I actually thought was better than that opponent, but good performance from Shannon, ruthless. She's a right handful, and you know, she's going well under Adam Booth, and she's going to be an exciting prospect.
Do you think she can fight for titles now, or are we rushing the gun there?
I think she still needs a couple more fights. You know, that was her first 6-rounder, and although it only went 2 rounds, she's still got a bit to learn, but she's improving. Her temperament's improving all the time. She's getting a lot more controlled in her work, and I think probably another 3 or 4 fights and she'll be ready to start stepping up.
Now, one that was possibly, arguably, the show stealer tonight, Craig Richards versus Andre Sterling. I mean, from round one, it was explosive as you like. I mean, that's the type of fights that you want on these next-gen cards, aren't you?
A little bit of spite, you know, a bit of South London rivalry, final eliminator for the British title. Good fight, a little bit scrappy at times. How Sterling survived from the 6th or 7th round, I don't know, but showed great heart. Good performance from Craig Richards, and you know, we've got to go and see whether we make that fight with Buatsi or Craig Richards fights for that vacant title, because we'll see if we keep Joshua Buatsi at British level or move him on to try and challenge for a world title shot.
Now, Otha Jones III. I mean, that was some knockout. I mean, that's how you announce yourself in the UK, York Hall, isn't it?
It is, and we're so lucky to have the best talent in America now in our books in Matchroom Boxing USA. Not just the knockout, but the backflip, the smile. You know, he's got it all. He's 19 years old. He's had hundreds of amateur fights. You know, so much boxing in his family. This is the future of boxing in America, guys like that. And it's great to bring him over here. Although I told him he'd be boxing in big arenas all around the world. Probably when he turned up here, he thought, "What is this?" But you know, great experience for him, and he's a massive star for the future.
You mentioned you might try and get him out next week in Providence. Is that the plan?
I said if you want to jump on that card, you know, he's had a few months off with injury, so I want to make sure he gets his 8 fights a year. I think he's important for these young fighters.
Now, Ted Cheeseman, what do you make of it? Kieran Conway, it was a very close decision. Did you have it? I mean, obviously a draw. Did you have it a draw?
No, I had it to Ted by 3 or 4 rounds. I thought Kieran Conway boxed really well, and after 6 rounds, I thought it's quite close. But you know, taking nothing away from Kieran, I thought Ted won the fight. You know, everyone's quick to sort of criticise when we get a decision go our way in a really tight fight, and we've had 2 decisions with the Ted Cheeseman fight and the Kid Galahad fight in the space of a week that should have really gone our way. So it's boxing. Scoring, judging is subjective. You know, we don't see what other people see. But I think the general consensus in the building was that Cheeseman should have been a winner of that fight, but still the champion, and he'll now move on to a Scott Fitzgerald fight.
And when can we expect that?
September, October. I think it's a great fight. Ted's got to improve. Fitzgerald's a dangerous fighter.
When you look at that division, you've got Scott Fitzgerald, Cheeseman, Fowler. Do you reckon those 3 could be involved in a trilogy of fights together?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Fowler's got a tough fight himself coming up against Brian Rose. If he wins that, I would put him in line to fight the winner of Cheeseman and Fitzgerald. So good division right now, and some interesting domestic fights to be made.
Now, the main event, Conor Benn. I mean, what were you thinking after the first few seconds when he got?
I mean, I think it was literally 3 seconds in, he just chipped a huge right hand. I was just impressed by the way he stayed composed. Koivula bullied him in that first round, and when he came out for the second round, I expected Conor to move and box, but he decided, no, I'm going to stand my ground, I'm going to push you back. And I thought it was a brilliant performance. I smashed him to pieces in the second round. I thought it was explosive, I thought it was gutsy, I thought it was powerful. And you know, he's really developing into a serious contender now. And he's working hard behind the scenes. You know, people just think that he's a flash kid and, you know, he's got the cars and the dad's name and that. But honestly, he's working really hard and he's improving a lot under Tony Sims.
That opponent had fought for the European title 3 times. So could Conor Benn be in line for a European title shot?
I'd still like to see him have 1 or 2 more. I mean, the champion's Avanesian, who's a great fighter. Conor wants to fight Samuel Vargas, you know, who beat Koivula in a split decision. That's a big step up. But, you know, let's enjoy the moment tonight and realise that was a very good performance from a great British prospect.
There's obviously quite a few names at British level for him. The Josh Kelly one is the one that keeps coming up. Can we see that by the end of the year, or is that too early?
I think by the end of the year. I mean, I certainly think it's a great fight and it can be built into a huge fight. They both can lose at this level. You know, Josh Kelly just got a draw. He's going to fight probably Avanesian. That's a tough fight. You know, if Conor wants to fight Samuel Vargas, that's a tough fight. So at some point, you'd almost rather put them in against each other. But I really think that could be built into a big fight.
There's a couple more. I know you're desperate to leave, but Joshua-Ruiz, obviously, you mentioned this week you're deciding between MSG or the UK. Has there been any developments at all?
Still the same. Next week and over the weekend we'll be making our decision, but still looks likely between those two venues.
Now with that rematch, I mean, a lot of people are doubting Joshua, obviously, after the defeat. Do you still have full confidence that he can pull off?
It's a very tough fight. You know, anytime you come off a loss, your confidence is down, and obviously the opponent's confidence is going to be sky high. I don't believe that was Joshua anywhere near his best in there that night. So fingers crossed he can get the win in a rematch. A massive fight, and probably the first time in a long time we've actually gone into a fight not thinking about the fight after. You know, it's always been what you're doing next, when you're fighting Wilder, when you're doing this. Now it's just focus on this fight, and it's an all or nothing fight.
Fury Wilder is also expected to take place maybe end of the year, start of 2020. Do you see the AJ Ruiz rematch bigger than that?
I do actually, yeah. You know, it's quite weird that it would be, but AJ remains, like, again, we just saw the figures released from Las Vegas Commission. Tyson Fury sold 5,000 tickets for his Vegas fight. I mean, Josh sold 20,000 and could have sold it out twice. So he still remains the draw of the division, even in defeat. And the rematch with Andy Ruiz is huge, but you know, it's not really about the size of the fight. It's just about getting the win now, and fingers crossed for that.
Now Dillian Whyte coming up in a few weeks. Very tough fight against Oscar Rivas. Is the WBC interim title? You've mentioned that could be on the line. Mauricio Suleiman came out this week unhappy. I mean, what's the developments on that?
We're getting there. You know, it's almost certain that the interim title and the mandatory position will be on the line. It's just a case of when. We want to make sure that Dillian Whyte fights the winner of Wilder's next defence, and we'll be tying that up hopefully this week for an announcement.
And Dillian Whyte's obviously pay-per-view against Oscar Rivas. How many more pay-per-views are you expecting this year? Obviously Joshua-Ruiz would be...
Well, we've only done 2 with that one up until the end of July. I think last year we did 6. So we'll certainly be doing less than we did last year. You've got Lomachenko against Campbell. You've got Ruiz against Joshua 2. So there's 2. And maybe one in the middle, maybe a Kell Brook. So 5 max, but probably 4. I think last year we did 6.
You mentioned Kell Brook, just to touch on him, obviously this week, a lot of rumours about possible retirement. Obviously that got denied.
Yeah, he just wanted to come out and say, look, I just want a big fight. Terence Crawford, Amir Khan, any of those guys, and he's good to go. But he was supposed to fight MSG. He doesn't want to sort of tread water. I think his performance last time was a little bit poor because he weren't really motivated in that fight. So just trying to make him a big fight.
Final one next week, back in the States. Demetrius Andrade defends his title. If he wins that against Selecki, would you look to put him in with Canelo, Golovkin?
So, you know, Canelo, Golovkin. I think it makes the undisputed fight against Canelo. It's a great fight. Not many people want to fight Demetrius Andrade, but I think next week's going to be a great fight, and it's a chance for him to make a big statement and start calling those guys out.
And finally, just Callum Smith, obviously won convincingly in New York a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, Billy Joe Saunders has got the title now, the WBO. Is that a potential unification?
You know, he wants to unify the belts. They've also made an offer for John Ryder to fight Billy Joe Saunders, who's actually mandatory for Callum Smith. So it's interesting, you know, Callum Smith wants those big fights, and you know, if there's a unification with Billy Joe Saunders, there's something to look at as well.
Hearn, appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.